Hello everyone, it's Shannon here for Honeybee Stamps. In today's video, we are going to create this really fun 3D box card using the A2 Surprise box card base die set as well as the Fluttering By Stamp Set. We're going to start our project with the A2 Surprise box card base die set. The large die will cut out your actual card base. Then this die will cut out inserts which you'll add your images to. The next two dies are just decorative layers for your tabs, and the last die will cut out extenders which you will use to connect your images to your inserts. I'm going to start by die cutting the card base, and I'm going to use this large die and die cut it out of 110-pound yellow cardstock twice. These two pieces will actually make the base of our box. To add some interest, I'm going to do some ink blending on top of these panels. I'm going to use the Flower Builder background stencils. When you position your stencils, you want to make sure that you have the text up front, and I like to keep it at the bottom. This will just make sure lining up the two layers will go really smoothly. Now I'm going to just ink blend right on top of this with a distress ink. This is Mustard Seed. Now I didn't spray this with pixie spray or even bothered to tape it down, which made it a little bit trickier. I just really had to hold that stencil and paper in place. I definitely would recommend at least the bare minimum taping it down to your work surface, and even better spraying the back of it with pixie spray so it doesn't shift around on you. But I made it work. So once I finished ink blending the flowers, I'm now going to move on to the centers. Again, I want to make sure that the text on the stencil is down at the bottom and legible so it's not backwards or flipped around. And then I'm just going to ink blend over the flower center stencil with my next distress ink. This is Spiced Marmalade. And I'm using Distress inks today instead of Distress oxide just because the inks will dry a lot faster than the oxides will. So once I finish with my Spiced Marmalade, I'll then remove my stencil and my detailing or my pattern is done. I'm going to repeat that for my second panel, and now I'm ready to kind of put this box together. As you can see, I've added score tape or 1/4 inch to each one of the tabs on the large die cut pieces, and I've also die cut 3 of the inserts, and I've also added score tape right next to the score line on each one of the tabs on the inserts. So first I need to actually put together my box card. So I have my 2 base pieces. I'm going to remove the backing on the score tape on one of the tabs and then just overlap the second base piece on that tab. Then I'm going to go ahead and start actually creasing right along all the score lines. So right at that tab where I just connected the two, then I'm going to crease this other tab, and then I'm going to move on to each one of the sides. So fold them over and then just give them a good press with my scoring tool. Now this box is really starting to come together, but I can't connect the tab to the other side yet. I need to now move on to my inserts. So I'm going to set my card base aside and I'm going to move on to my inserts. The first thing I need to do is crease along each one of those tabs right on the score line. And after I finish creasing all 3, I'm going to move on to actually adhering them into my card base. First, I'm just going to remove some purple tape there. Then I will remove the backing on one of the tabs on one of the inserts. And I'm going to adhere that tab right next to the very first tab that we adhered to on the base. So this is going right up against that first tab on the base. And this will make sure that the spacing between our 3 inserts is equal. So now I'm going to remove the backing on our second insert and adhere that right up against that in the previous inserts tab, and then we're going to repeat that for our third and final insert. So now we have all 3 inserts inside our surprise box, and now I'm just going to remove the backing on the other tabs on the inserts, then fold over the other side of our base, and now we're almost ready to put this together. We just have to now remove the backing on the last piece of score tape on the tab on the base and then adhere the side together, and that will actually complete our surprise box. Pretty easy to put together, and now we get to do the fun part, which is fill it up. I went ahead and stamped 3 butterflies from the Fluttering By Stamp Set on to Nina Solar White in Memento Tuxedo Black, and now I'm going to Copic color them. I'm going to divide these butterflies up into a light and dark section, but there's still going to be just one color. So this is my purple butterfly. I'm coloring I just finished the light section, now I'm moving on to a dark section, and I started with V04 and now I'm using V06 just to add in some shadow. So each section, light and dark, is only going to use 2 markers. one to kind of create a little bit of a gradation so they have a little bit more interest. And I'm never going to put a light section right next to a light section. I'm going to kind of break it up with a dark section just so it creates some more visual interest. And I'm actually only using 3 markers in total. I'm using a light, medium, and dark. So my light sections will use the light and medium marker, and my dark sections will use the medium and dark marker. And then I'll finish up by coloring the body with a black and a gray. So I'm going to repeat this for every butterfly, basically dividing it up into a light section and a dark section. For this orange butterfly, I'm using Y17 and YR04 for my light section. I'm now already moving on to a dark section. I have YR04 and YR07 markers for my dark section. And now I'm going to move on to another dark section, which is the bottom of the wings here, and start coloring that. So I'm just going to continue to work my way around and color this whole butterfly in. And again, I try not to put a light section next to a light section or a dark section right next to a dark section. I try to break it up when I'm coloring, so I have light next to dark, so it just makes it a little bit more interesting. And these areas I'm coloring are very small, so I don't have to do a lot of blending. So I'm not really going back through my markers too much. Every once in a while, just to kind of smooth out the gradation, I'll go back with my lighter and kind of blend out. But they're just really small areas, so the blending is really minimal. Now I'm going to move on to my last butterfly, my pink butterfly. Again, starting with my light combo. Here I'm using RV13 plus RV04. Now I'm already going to move on to my dark combo using my RV04 again, and then RV25 to kind of add that darker shade. I'm just going to continue to work with these 2 combos of colors around my butterfly and color it all in. And once I finish coloring this butterfly, I will have all my coloring done. And with my coloring done, I'm going to go ahead and die cut these out with the matching dies. I've also stamped a sentiment here from the Fluttering By Stamp Set and die cut that out with the matching dies. And I've used these additional dies in the A2 Surprise box card base to die cut some decorative layers for our tabs on the box. And I'm going to use this third and final die here to die cut out some extenders. These are what I'm going to use to attach my butterflies to the inserts inside my box. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of add these decorative layers to my tabs. Just going to add some liquid glue to the backside to the orange layer. This is the bigger layer, and adhere this down to each one of those tabs on my box. And again, these are just decorative layers. You do not have to do this. You could totally skip this step if you don't want to. But I do think it adds a nice little different pop of color for the inside of your card. So I'm just going to finish up here by adhering all the smaller layers, which is my light white layers. Then I'll go around and just give them a good press to make sure all 3 of those layers are nice and secure. So now that my layers are down, I'm going to go ahead and add this tiny little bit of score tape to each one of those extenders. I die cut those extenders obviously out of acetate, so they're not going to be visible, but we do need to use a good adhesive to really adhere them down to our inserts. So I'm just going to use score tape for that, and as you can see, I'm just going to peel back the one side of the score tape and adhere all my die cuts to one of the extenders. I'm going to use 2 extenders for my sentiment because it's a little bit big, and just adhere that right onto those. And now I'm ready to kind of put them into the box. So I'm going to start with my sentiment. And one thing to keep in mind is you don't want to go beyond your box when it's closed. So it's good to check and close your box every once in a while to make sure all of these die cuts that you're adding inside aren't popping out beyond it. So I'm just adjusting here, putting my sentiment in a little bit lower so the butterfly is a little bit higher than the sentiment, and just kind of tweaking a little bit here and there until I get it just right. Now that I've got one of those butterflies in, I'm going to grab another butterfly, remove the backing on the bottom part of score tape, and then pop that in. Here you can see I'm closing it, and I had a little bit of that purple butterfly sticking out, so I'm just going to adjust him, and there we go. He's now perfectly tucked inside that box when it's closed. And I'm going to finish with this pink butterfly in the very back. And again, I'm going to close it and check, and a little bit was sticking out beyond, so I did push it down a little bit so it wasn't sticking out beyond the box, because if it's sticking out beyond the box when it's closed, it's not going to fit into an A2 envelope. And that will actually complete my card. I'll now hold the card up to the camera so you can get a good look at all the details we added to this super fun surprise box card. I love the butterflies popping out, and I love that the extenders are kind of bouncy. It almost gives the butterflies a look of that they're actually fluttering. I love how they kind of bounce and wobble inside there. And you can see how when we close our box card, it closes completely down to an A2 size card and will fit perfectly in an A2 envelope, which I just think is so cool and such a fun surprise for when you open up this card to see those butterflies in such dimension from this really cool 3D design. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you'd like any more information on the products I use, please head over to Honeybee. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.